Okay, so in this project, we're going to build a website called Vera, which is it's built to be a software solutions company, but I mean, you could change it to be anything, any kind of company. And it is a dark theme. So starting at the top, we have a nav bar that is very common to what we've already done and seen. And we add the effect, so we get a background. We also add a border to the bottom when we start to scroll. And then we have this hero area, and you'll notice that we have some revolving words. So this is actually from a third-party script called Replace Me. And I've already included it in the starter for this project, so it'll already be there. It'll be included in the index HTML, and then we just have to implement it, which is very easy. So it's kind of nice because you can fit multiple words in here. So we have startup, enterprise, and small business software solutions for. So we have that. We have this orange line over here, which is a background image. This isn't part of this image, so we have to position that correctly. Then we have the partner logos under that. Then we have this registration area here. We have this area with solutions. We have some image cards with some badges inside. And then down here we have another kind of details area with the background image positioned. Another one here just on the opposite side. And then we have these points with some icons. And then this is unique to this project. So this is it's going to be a video modal, but we're going to implement this animated logo. So we're going to add some custom CSS to make that happen. And when we click that, it'll open up a modal, and it will actually play a video. Now it's just playing my web dev guide, but you could make it any YouTube video. And then when you click outside of it, it'll close. So we'll be doing that. We're going to add these pricing boxes. We're going to add some cool looking modals. So if we click on any of these images here, you'll see it opens a modal that looks really nice, has a dark background. We have a details and close button. And then we have another subscribe form down here and a footer. Okay. And some of these are very similar to some of the other sites that we've done, but I try to change things up a little bit, change the style, the corners and all that. But yeah, so that's what we're building. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so just like we've done with the other projects, we're going to take the starter. You can download that from this section, and I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste it on my desktop, and then I'm going to rename it to just Vera website. And then I'll open that with my text editor. Okay, and let's install our dependencies. And then we're going to run SAS, so npm run SAS watch. Open our index.html and open with live server. Okay, so as far as what I added in addition to the regular starter template is just the Poppins font. That's what we're using here. And then I also added the replaceme.min.js script. So this isn't a script that I created. It's just a third-party tool that you can use to give you that effect. But that's pretty much it. So let's jump into our Bootstrap SCSS, and you can see we're using the Poppins font, and we're just going to add in our customization, our variables. So we have our colors. The primary is going to be that orange color. Then we have the secondary is the dark gray. Dark is black. The body BG is almost black, and then body color, so the text is white. All right, and then we're going to add in our spacing. So same thing we've been doing, added 6, 7, and 8. And then I'm also going to do the line height and the header margins as well. So headings margin bottom and line height base. And then for the nav bar, you can see most of these have just the same customizations, and these are just the things I like to change, but there's a lot more you can look into in the variables file. So just our navbar stuff that we've already talked about, and then we have our button stuff, button changes. So this is going to be a site that has 50 pixel radius, padding And then we just added it to the different sizes, and we changed the nav bar toggler to 5 pixels because we don't want that to be 50 pixels because that just looks silly. And then for the inputs, we're going to have no radius and a little bit of padding. And then the input border color I changed to 666. So that's going to be a gray color. All right, so let's save that. And you can see the background already changed. And now we're ready to start on our navigation and the header/hero. Okay, so we're going to do the navigation and the header/hero part, which is this right here, and that includes the replace me script, so we can change these words up. Also, we have the image right here that we're going to put on the side, this line or decoration, whatever you want to call it, and then we also have some that we can put on the right. So there's a left and a right, and I'll show you those in the images. So right here, vertical decoration left and vertical decoration right, which are SVGs. And when you first add them, it's just going to basically take up the whole screen, just all in orange color. So we have to position and size them. So let's start off with the navigation, which is very similar to what we've done in the past. So I'm actually going to just paste it in and just go over it real quick. So we just have our navbar class. We're expanding on large screens, and then sticky top, navbar dark. We're wrapping everything in a container. We have our brand, a logo SVG, and then the hamburger menu or the toggler, the collapse div, and then the UL with the links. Now, under the UL, I have a span with nav item, and inside that, we have a font awesome stack. So we're stacking icons, and the first one is an FA circle. That's 2 times for the size, and then inside of it will be a Facebook F icon, which is 1 time. So that'll be smaller and put in the middle of the circle. Same thing here with Twitter. So let's save, and that's what it's going to look like. All right, now for the header, let's go down under the nav. And we're going to have a header tag with the class of header. And then our image, that line on the side, the vertical decoration, we're going to put that in an image with a class of vertical dash decoration. And also we want to position it absolute. And then I only want to show it on screens that are bigger than medium. So as you can see, when I go below medium, it goes away, because otherwise it just looks weird. It looks kind of cluttered. So what we can do is set display none with D none, and then say D-MD block, which will then make it displayed as block on medium screens and up. Okay, and the actual image is going to be vertical decoration left. Now if I save this and we look at our project, we just now have an orange screen because it covers everything. So before we size it and position it, I'm just going to comment it out for now. Now underneath that is where we have our container with our row, and then we have our call, which is going to be MD6, and I'm also just going to add padding top 5 to that. And then inside that we'll have our H1, which is going to be really large text. So what I'm going to do is add a custom class, just like we did in the last video, of XL-text. And let's also add just margin top 5. Okay, and inside that we're going to say software solutions, software solutions 4, and then it's going to be a couple different words because we're going to use that replace me script, but for now we'll just have one word. But we do have to wrap this in a span. I do want to change the color to primary, so text primary, and I want to make the font weight bold to make it stick out a little bit. And then we're going to also add the class of replace-me, and just for now we'll hard code small business. Now it's not going to be the right size because we haven't added the XL text class yet, but we'll do that in a second. So underneath the H1, let's do a paragraph with the class of lead, And inside that, I'm going to paste some text in. And then underneath that, we'll have an A tag with a primary button. Okay, and let's make it text white as well. And then that's just going to say learn more. Okay, if we take a look, let's see, primary didn't work for some reason because I spelled it wrong. Okay, now let's add some custom SCSS. So we're going to go into our styles and let's add the XL-text, and I'm going to make the font size 65 pixels. All right, so that's the size I want it. And then let's do the background image. So basically this right here, and it's going to have a little overlay. So what I'm going to do is add a linear gradient over it. So let's take the header and let's position it relative. Actually, we don't need to. We can add the Bootstrap class here. Better yet. So in the header, we'll say position dash relative. Okay, so that way we can position anything we want absolute within it. So for the background, we're going to say linear gradient, and we're going to do RGBA, so red, green, blue, alpha. Set it to black, so 0, 0, 0 for red, green, blue, and then 0.2 for the alpha value. And then outside of that first parentheses, we're going to do the same thing, RGBA, and then black, and then 0.5. And then after both parentheses, have a comma, and then we can add the URL that we want to use, which is going to be /images/ and we want the header background JPEG. And to position that, I'm actually going to do left, center, and then we want no repeat. Okay, and then let's set the background size to cover, and let's set the height of the header to 600 pixels. Okay, so now we have our background image. Now if we change these values here, like if I say 0.9, you can see that makes it a little darker. If I make this darker, like 0.7, makes it even more dark. So, I mean, you can mess with those values if you want, but I'm just going to do 0.2 and 0.5. Now, for the vertical decoration, let's uncomment that. And again, that's just going to kind of cover everything. So we're going to grab that. Let's say vertical dash decoration. And it's already set to absolute, so I'm going to set it to the top. From top, let's do 12%. And then the width, I'm going to set that to 24 pixels. And there we go. So now it's positioned where I want. And it doesn't show on small screens because of that. We did D none, and then we did DMD block. So let's see, what else do we want to do here? The XL text, I want that to be smaller on smaller screens. So let's add a media query. So we'll say media, and let's do a max width of 992 pixels. And take that XL-text, and let's set the font size to 50. I think it was 70, so now we'll do 50. Yeah, so that looks good. And then I want to align the text in the center for the header, so let's say header. And text align, we want to align to the center. And then if it's on really small screens, you can't see the background image anymore because of how it's positioned. So what I'm going to do is copy this, the background, and then I'm going to paste that in here, and I'm going to change it from left center to center center. So now we can see it in the background. But you know what? Let's make it a little darker, because now like the smoke is the brightest part of the image is right behind us. So we can change this one to 0.4, and let's change this one to 0.9, and that will make it darker. And again, if you want to mess around with it and make it even darker, you can do that as well. So now that we have the design done, I want to add that effect of the text switching. So we've already included the replace me script, which is right here. So now let's go into the script.js, which is our custom JavaScript, and we'll just put a comment here and say replace text in header. And we're going to do this by creating a variable where we're going to select that that replace me class, which is, where is it? Right here. So we have this class of replace me. So let's say const check replace and set that equal to document dot query selector, and we're going to get the class of replace dash me. Okay, so we're bringing that in from the DOM. Now what we're going to do is just check to see if it's not null. So make sure it's there. So we'll say if check replace is not equal to null, then we want to move forward, and we need to initialize a replace me object, and we're going to put that into a variable. So we'll say new replace me, which is an object that we have access to because of that script that we included, and then we want to pass into that the check replace variable that we just created, and then we pass in a second argument of options, and that's going to be an object. So we want to say animation, and we're going to set that to a string of animated and then fade in, like that. So that's just how it's the effect that it's going to have. The speed, I'm going to set that to 2000, which is 2000 milliseconds or 2 seconds. Separator, so basically what we're going to do is pass in a list of comma separated values, and those will be the words that will rotate. So the separator, I want that to be a comma. All right, and then the next thing is the loop count, which I wanted to just keep going, so it's going to be infinite. So let's say infinite for that. And then auto run, so do we want it to run automatically, and we're going to set that to true. All right, so that should do it. I'm going to save it, and then in the index.html, let's change this to small business, and then we'll say startups. And I'm using the comma because that's what I specified as the separator. And then what was the last one was enterprise. So let's see if that works. And there we go. So really easy. We didn't have to write any of the logic because we're using a script. All we did was initialize it or instantiate it, pass in the element that we want to use, and then set some options. So that's pretty much it as far as the header goes. And there we go. So in the next video, we're going to do the partners here, which are going to change based on the screen size. So you can see we have 5, then 3, then 2, then 1. And then we're going to do this form area, this registration area. So now we're going to do the partners area under the header. So let's say partners, and we're going to give this, it's going to be a section with a class of partners. Let's say py4 and overflow dash hidden. And we're going to have a container, of course. And then we'll have our row, and inside that we're going to have a 10 column, it's not 10 column, 1 column with 10 slices, and then we'll offset it by 1. So let's say call dash, and we'll do LG10, but then let's offset it. So offset dash LG1. Okay, so it's just going to push it over 1 because I don't want these to go all the way over. I want it to be contained in a 10 column or a 10 slice column. So in here, then we'll have the title. So it'll be an H6. Let's do text dash center and margin bottom 4. And I want to make it uppercase. So text uppercase. And we'll say our partners. Okay, and then underneath that, actually I want to make that an H6, not an H5. And then underneath that, we're going to have our partner logos, which are going to be in a flex row. So let's say D-flex. And we want to justify the content to the center. I also want to align items to center. And, excuse me, and then text center. Okay, and then each image I'm just going to wrap in a div. So we have our div and then our image, and each image is going to have a class of MX5 for some spacing on the sides. And let's see, yeah, I think that should be good. And then the first one is going to be images slash and then partner logo 1. So for now, let's just take this div with the image and copy it down. We have 5, so that's 3, 4, 5. Let's change the logo image, so 2, 3, 4, and 5. And if we check it out now, it's fine, but when we start to make it smaller, you'll see it goes off the screen. So there's a few ways we could handle this. We could have it wrap onto the next row, but I'm actually going to just cut certain ones out as we move to smaller screens. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to go to the second div here and add a class of D-none by default, but then on small screens, so DSM, then it will be block. And we're going to do the same thing for these other guys, except for this one, instead of small, let's do MD. Medium screens. Okay, and then this one, the second to last one, I'm going to do LG, so it'll show on large screens, and then this one will also be LG. So now on large screens it'll be 5, large and up, but then if we go down, you'll see it cuts to 4, and then 3, and then 2. But I want to look at it on an actual mobile device, so let's go to our device toolbar here. And it looks like these are a little too far apart, so let's try, instead of MX5, let's change those to MX-4 and see. Yeah, so now they're closer together and we have a little bit of space on the side. So I think that looks good. So that takes care of the partners. Now we're going to do the contact form and the registration. So basically it'll be these 2 columns right here. All right, let's go under the last section and we'll just say form area. So section, I'm going to give it an ID of contact, class of contact, and a class of MY7. Okay, and then a class of container. Let's do a row, and we're going to have 2 columns, so we need call dash MD dash 6. And then we're going to have the, let's just take a look here. So we're going to have this get more information. For some reason I made this shorter with width 75, but I don't think I'm going to do that. So let's just see how it looks. So we'll have an H2, and let's do a font weight dash bold. And yeah, I think we'll just go with that for now, and let's say get more information. Yeah, so we'll keep it like that. That's fine. And then underneath that, we want the line. So we're going to use an HR tag here. And I'm going to have a custom class called HR-heading. Okay, so all the horizontal rules that are under the headings will have this HR with a special class. Right now, it just looks like that, but I want to make it look like this. So we'll do that after we finish this markup. Now the next thing is the paragraph. So let's do a paragraph with the class of lead. And I'll just grab that text real quick. All right, and then underneath that paragraph will be a UL. We want it unstyled, so list.unstyled. And let's make the line height bigger, so we'll do LH-LG. And then each list item is going to be a flex box, so we want to do D-flex for all of these. And we're going to align items to the center. Okay, now inside the list item will be an icon, so let's do FAS, and it's going to be a check, so FA-check, and then the sizing we'll do, actually we'll just leave the default sizing, but let's change the color to primary, and then let's do a margin on the x-axis 3 just to push things over a little bit. And then underneath that we'll have a div, and inside strong tags we'll have kind of like a label. So I'm going to say customized solutions and then a colon, right? And then after that strong tag we'll have a little bit of text like that. So if I save and we take a look, and then I'm just going to add one more list item formatted the same way. So here we have seamless integration. And yeah, I think that looks good. Now on the other side, we're going to have the form. So let's see, we have call MD6, ends right here. And what I'm going to do is actually use call-MD-5, but I'm going to offset it. So offset-MD-1. And that'll just push it over a little so that the form is, all the way over to the right as much as it can go. So in that column, we're going to have our form. And in that form, we're going to have inputs wrapped in MB4. So let's say input, and this is going to have a class of form control. But I want the background to be the secondary, which is a dark color. So BG secondary text, let's give it a placeholder of enter name. Okay, so I think it looks good with the dark background. And not black, but like lighter than this background, the black. So let's take that MB4 and let's copy it down, and then we're going to have our email, so we can change the type. And what else? We're just going to change the placeholder to enter email. Then after that, we're going to do the phone. So under that, paste, whoops, wrong thing. We want this. So this is going to be text, and then let's say enter phone. And then we're going to have a select for what we're interested in, what solution. So under the MB4, we're going to create another MB-4, but we're going to have a select. And we'll give this an ID of interested and a class of form control. And also, we're going to do our BG secondary on this as well. And then for the options, name, I guess we could just say interested. Now inside the select tags, we want to have option, and this one isn't going to have a value because it's just the title. So we're going to say interested in ... and then we can add our other options. So the first one The value will say ERP, and for the text we'll say ERP solution. And then what I'm going to do is copy that down, and the next one is going to be CRM. So CRM solution, and the value will be CRM. Then we have CMS. So CMS solution. And then we have SFA. Change that to SFA. All right, so let's take a look. Cool. And then I just want to have a checkbox to agree to the terms. So we're going to go outside of the last MB4 with the select list. We'll do another MB4, but I'm also going to do form-check. And then we'll have our input. This is going to have a class of form. Actually, this isn't going to have a class. It's just going to be a type of checkbox. And we don't really need, well, for the ID, we'll say agree-check. But we don't really need a name. Now, under the input, we'll have the label, and this label will have a class of form-check-label. And for the for value, we can put agree check, which is the ID of the input. All right, and then within the label, we're going to say I agree to and we're going to say terms and conditions, but we'll wrap it in a link, which actually, you know what? Let's make this the privacy policy, because we are going to have a privacy policy page. So let's say this will go to privacy.html. So we agree with the privacy policy. All right, so let's check that out. Good. So that will go to privacy.html. And we still haven't done the form yet. You can see it's not readable because you don't have that background. But let's finish up this form. So under this div with the class of MB4, we're going to add a class of D-grid because we want a button here that spans across. We'll do gap2, and let's say input, we'll give it a type of submit, and the value will say submit. And for the class, we're going to do input btn-primary, and let's do text-white. I think that should do it. Let's see what happened here. Type equals submit, value class. We actually don't need this input class, and this should be not there. All right, so now we have our submit. And if I make this smaller, it should stack on smaller screens. So we do have some custom styles for the HR here, so let's do that. We're going to go into our style SCSS. We'll go right here, and let's say class of HR heading. And we want to display that as an inline block. And I'm going to set a width on that to 3.5 rem, so that'll shorten it. And then the height, I'm going to set that to 0.125 rem. And then margin top, we'll use 0.625 rem. And border, I'm going to set that to none. And then the background color, let's set that to the primary, so we'll say var --bs primary. Okay, and then, yeah, that should do it. Let's save that. Let's see, I do want it to be a little brighter. Actually, I think, let me just try something here. So if we say opacity 1, yeah, that makes it brighter because by default the opacity is less than 1. But yeah, so that looks good, and we can use this wherever we want with whatever headings we want. And that's it. I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so we're going to do the nav scroll and the solutions area. Now we've done the nav scroll quite a bit, so I'm just going to paste this in. We're going to go to the script.js, go under the replace me stuff that we did, and I'm going to paste this in. And all we're doing is getting the nav bar and listening for a scroll event. When we scroll past 50, then the nav bar is going to get these classes, including BG Dark, Border Bottom, Border Secondary. These are all Bootstrap classes. And then Navbar Sticky is a custom class if you want to add anything else, such as opacity. All right, and then it will remove those classes if it's under 50. So let's save that. And now if I, let's see, let's reload this. If I start scrolling, you'll see that all those classes kick in. It's not see-through though, so I do want to change the opacity value. That's where that navbar sticky class comes in. So let's say navbar dash sticky, and we'll set the opacity to say 0.9. And now if I scroll down, you can see it is transparent. Maybe let's try 0.8. Yeah, that's a little better. I like that. And then I want it to transition instead of just change, right away. So let's say navbar, and let's set the transition to, we'll say all, and then let's do 0.5 seconds and say ease in out for the effect. All right. So now that that's done, we're going to do the solutions part. So let's go to our index.html down at the bottom here and say solutions. Okay, so we'll have a section. I'm going to give it an ID of solutions because it is part of the navigation. We'll also do a class, and then let's say my-5 for the spacing. And then we want our container. We want the row, which I'm going to give. Now, the way I'm doing this is I'm creating a row for, let's see, where are we? We're doing this section. I'm creating a row just for the heading here that has the little badge and then the text. And then we'll have another row here for these two and another row here for these two. So this is the first one with the heading. And I'm going to give it an MB4 just to push everything down. And the way I'm going to do it is have a 6 column with an offset. That's why it ends here and here. So we'll say call dash MD dash 6, and then we're going to offset. So offset MD 3 because we want to push it to the middle. And I'm also going to make it a flex box, or a flex column rather, which is a flex box. So we're going to say D dash flex, but we're also going to add flex dash column. Remember, this is the header part, the heading. And then I'm going to align items to the center, and I'm also going to text center. And first thing we want here is our H5, and inside that we'll have a span with the class of badge. And let's make the background primary, and let's make let's take away any rounded corners and make the text uppercase. Okay, and this is just going to say solutions. So let's go over here, and now we should see this. Now underneath the H5 we'll have an H2. I just want to make the font weight bold for that. And then this one is going to say Vera provides software solutions for, I'll keep putting a 0, solutions for business acceleration. So let's take a look at that. Good. Now underneath that, we're going to have another row. So let's go underneath this div with the class of row, and let's create another class of row. And we could even put a comment here and just say solutions row 1. And it's going to be, they're going to be 2 columns. So we'll say call MD-6. And then let's do a margin. Yeah, we'll do a margin bottom -4. All right, and then these are going to be cards, so let's give it a class of card, and I'm also going to do a background of, yeah, let's do background of BG secondary. All right, now I'm going to have a card image, so this image is going to actually have a class of card-img-top. And that's going to be in images / and then solution 1. And then underneath that is going to be the card body. That's what adds the padding and stuff. So in the card body, we'll have an H5 with the class of card-title. And let's also make it bold. So FW-bold. And we're going to say ERP software solutions. And then for the text, let's do a paragraph with the class of card-text. And then I'm just going to grab that text real quick. All right, and then the last thing we want in here is under the paragraph, we're going to have a badge. It's going to be kind of like a tag. So let's say badge, and let's do BG-primary. And padding, we'll do P2, and then text -uppercase. And we'll say management for this. All right, let's take a look. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now we just want to copy the call MD6. So we'll go under that, and we're going to change the image to solution 2. And this is going to be, instead of ERP, this is going to be CRM software solutions. And then I'm just going to change the text out as well. And we'll change, let's do for the badge BG dark. And we'll change this to marketing. Okay, so there's our first row of solutions. Now I'll copy that row. So this div with the class of row ends right here. So I'm going to grab that all the way up to this comment, and then directly under it, this is going to be solution row 2. We're going to change the image to 3. And as far as the text here, we're going to say SFA software solutions, and then I'm going to grab that text. Okay, and then the last one is going to be solution 4 JPEG, and this is going to be WMS solutions, and then I'll grab that text, and we'll save that, and there we go. So now we have 2 rows. So that's our solutions. In the next video, we're going to do the 2 details areas. So this, and then we're going to also do the expertise with all the icons. Now we're going to do the 2 details area, which are these, and the expertise. So with the details, we have the same thing that we did with the header, where we have this image here that we need to position, this SVG, and same thing over here on the right. So let's jump into index.html. And under the last section, we'll say details 1. And let's create a section. I'm going to give this an ID of details because it's part of the navigation. And then a class of details, my5. And then we're going to position this relative because we want to position the orange SVG absolute within it. And then we'll have our container. And then a row, let's do padding top 5, and then our 2 columns. So we're going to do call MD6 Actually, we're doing call LG6. And let's add our H2, which is going to have a class of font weight bold. And we're going to say valuation and deployment. Then we're going to have our HR with the class of HR-heading. And then underneath that, we'll have a paragraph. And I'm just going to grab that text. Okay, under the paragraph, we'll have our UL, which is going to be unstyled. So we're going to use list, not lust, list dash unstyled. And let's also do an LH, so line height large, which will separate the lines out a little more. And then inside that, we'll have an LI, and this will have a class of deflex because we're going to display this as a flex box, and I want to align items to center. We're going to have an icon, which is going to be the check, so FAS, and then FA-check. And let's make it the text primary color, and let's do MX3, add a little margin on the sides. And then underneath that, we'll have a div. And in strong tags, we'll have the label for this, which is going to be customized solutions, colon, and then I'm going to grab the rest of the text. Okay, if we take a look now, it should look like this. That check isn't showing up, and that's because of this right here. Okay, and then the other list item, I'll just go ahead and grab. So there's only 2 list items. And that this one is seamless integration. Okay, now we can do the other column. So call LG6 ends right here. So let's do another call LG6. And then this will be an image. We want to do a class of IMG fluid. And it's going to be images/details1.jpg. So if I save that, there we go. Let's make the corners a little rounded. So in addition to image fluid, we'll do rounded-2. Okay. Now for the background image, we're going to put that down here, still within the section, but under the last div. So let's say image. We're going to give this a class of vertical. So vertical-decoration. And we want to position this to be absolute. And remember, we're not showing these on very small screens, so we're going to display none by default, but then we're going to display on medium screens and up as block. Okay, and then the image itself is going to be the vertical decoration left. And if we take a look, you can see that's, I mean, it's pretty much in the place where I want it, but instead of putting it down 12%, I want to move it, I want it at 0 from the top. So what I'm going to do is, we have this vertical decoration, that's what it's using right now, but let's come down here and let's say class details and then vertical decoration. And I'm going to set top 0, left 0, and width 24 pixels. Okay, so that just kind of moved it up a little bit so that it looks more even. Yeah, I think that looks good. And when we make this smaller, of course, that goes away. So the next detail section is going to be very similar. So we can probably just copy what we have. So for details 1, this whole section, I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to paste that here. And we just want to kind of change the position of things. So I want the image, if I save this right now, it's going to look like this. I want this image on this side. So, and it's going to be a different image, of course. So let's go down here, and we have our call LG6. I'm going to grab that, the image and the column div, cut it, and I'm going to put it above the call LG6 right here. which will then put it on the other side. Okay, now for the image, that's going to be details2.jpg. And then the vertical decoration, so for that, we're going to change the image to vertical decoration right. But of course we need to put it over here. So in the styles SCSS, let's copy this and let's say details-2 vertical decoration. Then I'm going to set that, I'm actually going to set it 5% from the top, but then I want to do 0 from the right. So now, oh, that didn't work. Did we add a class of details too? I don't think we did, actually. No. So this, we don't need this ID because we only need that on the first one because that's where the menu brings you to. And then this should be class details 2, and this should be 2. There we go. And then the only thing left to do here is the text. So we can change that. What is this text going to be? It's going to be maintenance and support services. Maintenance and, I'll just say maintenance and support. And then I'm just going to put that in there. Actually, we had a link there too, like that. Let's see. And then the 2 list items, let me just get those. So let's see, this LI down to this LI. Just change out the text, make it look more real and professional. So if I make this smaller, both of those vertical decoration images are going to disappear, okay, because they only show on medium and up. So now we're going to do the expertise. So let's go under the last section here, and we'll say expertise. So this will be a section. We are going to give this an ID of expertise, and then a class of expertise, and a class of, let's do BG secondary, which will be that dark gray. And then we're going to do our padding, so inside of the background, and then also some margin outside of it. So MY, we'll do MY6. And then we're going to have a container, and we're going to do our heading just like we did for this right here. And actually, that's the only place we did it so far, but there'll be a couple areas with a header like that. So let's add a row and margin bottom 4. And we're gonna do a 6 column, but we're going to offset it by 3. So let's say offset -MD 3. And I'm also going to make this a flex box, so deflex, but we want it to be a column, so flex column. And we want to align items to the center. And we're also going to align the text to the center. And then we want our H5, which is going to be a badge. So in the H5, we'll have a span with the class of badge, and then BG primary, and rounded is going to be 0, and then text dash uppercase. Okay, and then inside that we'll say expertise. So if we take a look at that, okay, so this is the BG secondary. And then we have our H5. Underneath that, we're going to have our H2, which is going to be font weight dash bold. And for that, we're going to say expertise strong point. And under the H2, we'll have a paragraph, and I'm just going to paste that in. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. And then underneath that row, the heading row, we're going to have another row, and we can put a comment here. We'll say expertise row 1, and we're going to have 4 across, meaning we want to do call MD3, right? Because each one takes up 3 of the 12 slices. And then we're going to have a card inside but I want the background to be transparent, so we're going to use that class. And let's take any border away, and let's align to the center, and margin bottom 3. And there's going to be a card image, so let's do card class card image, and it's actually going to be an icon, but we're putting it in the card image to use that formatting. So let's put the icon of FAS and then FA dash, what is it? FA dash light bulb, and we're going to make it larger, so 5x, and let's make it orange with the text primary. So let's check that out. Okay, so there's the light bulb. Now underneath the card image class is going to be the card body. And in the card body we'll have an H4. That's going to be the card dash title. And we're going to say flexible services. Flexible services. And then underneath that H4 we'll have a paragraph. And I'm just going to put some dummy text in here. We'll say lorem 8. Let's see what that looks like. All right, cool. And we'll just use the same dummy text for all of them. So I'm going to copy now the call MD3. Okay, let's copy that, and let's go right underneath it and paste it in. And then we're just going to change the icon. This is going to now be desktop. And we'll change the text here, the H4, to, let's say, great design. There's the second one. Let's actually put some space here. So under the first row, let's see. Yeah, under the, no, that's not it. The first row right here, let's do MB6. Let's try that. That's a little too much. MB5, we'll meet in the middle. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so now let's add the next call MD3. And let's see, that icon is going to be, actually, I'm sorry, this one, no, that's fine. This one's going to be Wi-Fi. And again, some of these icons don't really make sense, but you can change them if you want. So we're going to say easy to use. And then we're going to have one more call MD3 in this row. And this one is going to be smart options. And the icon for this is going to be cog. So FA cog. And that's our first row. So now we'll do the second row, which I'll just copy this. So this div ends here. So I'm going to grab all this. And then we'll have our second row. So this will be expertise row 2. And then what we'll have here is the glasses icon. And for the text here, we're going to say advanced tech. And then the next one is going to be graduation cap. And the text is going to be good expertise. Okay, then we have the, which one is this? This is going to be the chart bar, chart dash bar. And the text that we want here is going to be detailed reports. And then the last one is going to be cloud storage. And the icon is going to be FA Cloud. So that one makes sense. Okay, so that's our expertise area. And now if we were on smaller screens, they're just all going to stack. Looks good. Okay, so now in the next video, we're going to get into the video section, which is this part here. And we're going to add a bunch of custom CSS so we can add this little animation. So what we're going to start to work on now is the whole video section, and it's going to be split into a couple videos because we need to do this part with the image and the content areas underneath, but also this animated button. Okay, and then once we get that done, we can move on to the modal so that we can make it open up a video. All right, and there's a few extra steps to that. We're actually going to have to write a little bit of JavaScript for that to happen. But let's start on just this area as a whole and the animated button. So we're going to go down below the last section, and we'll just say video. And we're going to have a section with the class of video and the class of my-6. And then let's do a container and a row. And then for the column, I'm going to do call LG12. Actually, we could just do call 12. It's going to stretch all the way across. And then D dash flex, and we're going to make this a flex column, and then we're going to align items to the center. All right, so in here, I want to have a div and make it position relative so that we can position stuff in it absolute. And we're going to have our button in here. So the button is actually going to go after the image. So let's do the image first. So it's going to have a class of image-fluid, so that stretches all the way across. And then let's say for the source, images/video preview.jpg. So if I save that and we take a look, okay, so we have the image there. Now the button, we're going to put right under. It's actually a link, not a button, but it's going to be formatted as a button. So let's say A, and then we're going to give it a class of video-btn, which is obviously a custom class. It's not, has nothing to do with Bootstrap. And then this is actually going to open the modal, so we don't need an href. We can actually get rid of that, but we want to add a few other things in here. So one is going to be data-bs-toggle, and we're going to set that toggle to modal. And then we need a target, so we'll say data-bs-target, and we'll set that to an ID of video modal. And then the last one is actually going to be a custom data attribute for the source or the URL of the YouTube channel that we want to display in the modal. So let's say data-bs-source src, and I'm going to set that to, I'm going to paste this in. This is the URL of my web, my annual video that I do, my web development technologies, but you could put any YouTube URL in here that you want. And then in that link, or in that A tag, we're going to have a span, which is going to have a class of video-play-button. Okay, and inside that will just be an empty span. So we're doing this for the animation, just setting everything up. Right now, we don't even see anything, but we'll get back to this after. I do want to just add these 3 points underneath, and we can do that by going under this row. So that row ends here, and we're going to create another row, and I'm also going to give this a class of video-points. And then let's also do some padding. We'll do px-6 and then margin top-5. Okay, and then in this row we're going to have call LG4 because we want 3 columns, so they'll each take up 4 of the 12 slices. And then H4 with the class of FW-bold, and I'm going to say 10 years of experience, and then a paragraph, and I'm just going to throw that text in there. So that's the first point, and then let's copy that column. Actually, I'm just going to paste in the other 2. This is easy enough. You guys know exactly what I'm doing here. Okay, so we just have enduring partnerships and skilled, capable team. So I'll save that, and now we have those 3 points. Now on small screens, I do want to remove the padding and align the text to the center for those points. So if we take a look here, see how there's a lot of padding on the side. I don't think that looks very good. So that's why I gave it a custom class of video points. So we're going to go into our styles SCSS, and on small screens, let's say video dash points, and let's set padding to 0, important, and then let's text align to the center. All right, so I think that looks a little better. They still kind of look really close together, so what we could do is say video points and then call LG. Yeah, we'll do call LG4 and let's say margin bottom 20 pixels. And there, yeah, we broke it up a little bit. All right, so I think that's good. Now, for the button, we're going to have to add quite a bit of CSS. And if you don't understand all this and you don't understand my explanation, don't worry too much about it. I mean, if you're new to HTML, CSS, animation can get quite tricky. So I'll just try the best that I can to explain it. Now we have our video play button, right, which is this, which is right now it's just a span that has an empty span inside of it. So we're basically going to create everything in here through CSS. Even the triangle, this right here, this is actually made with borders. It's not an image, or it's not a font awesome icon. So let's jump into this. We're going to go above the media query here, and I'm just going to put a comment and say video play button, because there's quite a bit we're going to do here to style this. So first of all, let's do the video play button class by itself. So we're going to position that absolute within the container, which is relative. And then I'm going to set a high Z index, set that to 10. As far as positioning, we want it to be right in the middle. So I'm going to start with top 50% and from the left 50%. And what that'll do is it'll put it in the middle, but the topmost part of the image, or not the image, but the element here will be in the middle. Not the middle of the element, but the top of the element will be in the middle. Same thing with from the left. The leftmost part will be in the middle. So it's actually going to end up somewhere around here, down and over a little too much. So to fix that, you just use the transform property with translate X, which will move it on the X-axis, which is horizontal. And we just want to go back a little bit. So we're going to say negative 50% there. And then translate on the Y-axis, we're going to go up. So negative 50% there. That will put it smack dab in the middle. Okay, so this particular element, this is basically like a container. We can't see anything yet. There's no background or anything to this. We're going to put the background on the before and after pseudo selectors. This is basically just like its container, like we're using it to position it. So the width of this is going to be 32 pixels, and then the height is, let's say, 44 pixels, and then we want this border radius to be 50%, and then we're going to display as block because this is on a span by default, which is inline. We want it as a block, and then we also want to set the box sizing to content box, or else the icon's not going to be placed right due to the padding. And speaking of padding, for that we're going to do 1.125 rem for the top, 1.25 rem for the right, 1.125 rem for the bottom, and then 1.75 rem for the left. And then we're going to make the cursor a pointer. So when I save this, you're not going to see anything. If I put a temporary background here, like let's say background red, you can see exactly where it is, okay? But we're not going to add the background onto this. So what we're going to do is copy this whole thing and then paste that in, and we're going to add the colon before. So we're using the before pseudo selector, and whenever you use before or after, you have to have a content property, and we're just setting that to an empty string. Now a lot of this is going to stay the same. Position absolute, top 50%. We're going to keep the translates at 50%. The width, however, we're going to make that 76 to 76 because we're also counting the outer where the animation goes to. And then border radius, that's good. Display block, good. We don't need background sizing. We just need that on the parent or on the regular element. And then we don't need this padding here either. But this is where I do want to add a background. And I'm going to use the Bootstrap primary color. So I'm going to use the variable of dash BS primary. So if I save that and we take a look, now we can at least see the orange circle. Now this is where we're going to add the animation on, but I'm not going to do the animation just yet. We have to add, whoops, what did I just do? We have to add another property for the after pseudo selector for the animation to work correctly. So I'm going to copy this, paste it in again, and change this to after. And then we want content, position absolute, that's fine. Let's set the z-index to 1 here. I'm actually going to set this z-index to 0. Okay, and then positioning, that's going to stay the same. The width for this is going to be 70. So 70, border radius is good. Display block is good. Background, we're going to keep, that's going to be the same. Now I am going to add a transition onto this one because we want the animation to be smooth. So let's say just transition all, and we're going to do 200 milliseconds. Okay, now it's still just going to be an orange circle because I haven't applied the animation. So let's do that next. And we do that by adding a keyframe. And all we're doing, so if we look at the final one here, all we're going to do is scale this up. Okay, so we can use transform and then scale. So we'll start with scale 1, which is the default, and then we'll scale up to 1.5, and it will have that pulse effect. So let's go back to our CSS and let's add a create a keyframe. So we're going to say keyframes, and then we can call this whatever we want. We're going to say pulse border, and then we're going to do 0%. So basically the start, 0% of the animation, and we want to start at, and we have to use, since we're using transform, and up here we use translate X and translate Y, we have to include those as well. So I'll just copy that. But in addition to that, we're going to add translate Z, which is going to be 0, but the important part here is going to be the scale, which is going to be set to 1 when it starts at 0%. Now I'm going to copy this and then add 100%, so when it ends, or by the end, we want the scale to be 1.5. Okay, so we're scaling it up. And this stuff will all stay the same. Now if we keep it as is, I'm gonna add the animation now, and we're adding it onto the before. So right here, let's say animation, and then we want to choose the keyframe, which I called pulse border, and the length will be 1500 milliseconds. And let's do ease in out, and we want it to be infinite, meaning we want it to just keep going and not stop. So if I save that and we take a look, you can see that it's scaling up, right? It's going from 1 to 1.5. However, it's all solid orange, which I don't want. We want this effect. So we're also going to animate the opacity. So basically at 0, we're going to start at opacity 1, so basically solid, and then at 100%, we're going to be at opacity 0. And then it will start over. It will then be solid and then disappear, solid, disappear, etc. So if I save that and then we take a look, now you can see that the outer edges, basically the before, is now transparent. So now the last thing we want to do is the inside of it, the button, right? We want the triangle. So that's going to be the extra span that's in there. That's what this is for. Right now, this isn't doing anything. If I get rid of it, it's the same, right? So let's target that. We'll just go right here. Let's say video play button, and then we want to target the span inside of it. And we're going to actually position that to be relative. And then we're going to display as block. The z-index, we want to make sure it's on top of the before and after. So we'll set that to 3. We'll say we want from the top 6 pixels and from the left 4 pixels. So we're within the video play button right now. And then the width and height we're going to actually set to 0, and the way we're going to build this triangle is with border properties. So here we'll say draw button, and we can do that by saying border dash left, and we're going to make that 26 pixels solid white, and then we're going to say border top, and we're going to set that to 16 pixels solid, and we're going to set this to transparent. And then we're going to do the same for bottom, so border bottom will also be set to 16 pixels solid transparent. So if I save this, now we have a triangle, right? And if I were to change some of these values, like let's say this was 10 pixels, that's going to kind of screw it up a little bit. So these have to be pretty perfect for it to look like a triangle. If I set this to 5, so yeah, so you want to just set it to these values and it will be a perfect play button. And you could put like a Font Awesome icon in there, but doing it this way, we can use pure CSS. All right, so we now have the button. So in the next video, we want to make it so that when we click this button, it opens a modal and plays a video. All right, guys, so we're going to add the modal now, so that when we click this, a video opens and plays. And basically we're going to have an iframe in the modal, but we do have to add some JavaScript because we can't just put the video as a source of the iframe, because what will happen is once we play it, we'll close the modal, but the video will still be playing and you'll still hear it. So we actually have to use a couple custom JavaScript events that have to do with the modal opening and closing. So let's start off by just adding the modal. So we're going to stay within the video section just after the last div here, and then we'll just say video modal. Okay, and we're going to wrap this in a div with the class of video-modal, and then we have our class of modal. We'll also give it a class of fade, and actually we also want this to have an ID. So let's say ID and set that to video modal like that. All right, and then inside the modal, we want the modal dialog. So let's have a class of modal dialog. And inside that, we'll have the modal content. And inside that, we're going to have the iframe, and I'm actually going to put it in a class of ratio, and then ratio dash 16 by 9. And then we'll have our iframe. So this iframe is going to have a class of embed dash responsive dash item. And then we're going to give it an ID of video, because this will be the actual video. Now the source, we're actually not going to put it here. If I do, this will work. Let me just show you what happens. If I put the URL of the video in the source of the iframe, and we go ahead and click on this, it does open the video. All right, and if I play it, it plays. However, if I click out of the modal, it's still playing. So we have to make it so that it stops when we close the modal. So we're not going to put the source directly in here. We're going to do it dynamically with our JavaScript. All right, another thing I want to do is size that because I want it bigger than this. So in the style SCSS, let's go ahead and add right above the media query here. We'll do video dash modal and then modal dash dialog. And we're going to set a max width of 1150 pixels. And I'm also going to move it down a bit with margin top 20 pixels. Okay, so if I click it now, that's how I want the video. So in our JavaScript file, let's go in our script.js, and we'll go just right above the event listener here. And let's say video modal. And actually, let's go below. We'll keep this event listener with the user scroll. So this will be the very last thing. And we're going to bring some stuff in. So we want the video button, so video BTN, and we're going to say document.query selector, and let's select that by the class of video dash BTN. Make sure I spell document right. Okay, and then we also want the video modal, so this will be the ID of video modal. And then we also want the video itself, which has an ID of video, that's the iframe. Okay, so now let's check for the video button, make sure it's there. So we'll say if video BTN is not equal to null, then we're going to say video BTN, and we want to add an event listener onto it. And we're going to listen for a click event. And when that happens, we'll run a function. And in that function, we're going to set the source. Now, I'm actually going to initialize the source variable here. So I'm going to use let and say video source. And I'm using let because if I want to reassign this, right? I'm setting it to basically to undefined right here, but I want to be able to reassign it, so I can't use const. I'm using let. I usually use const unless I'm reassigning it. So I'm going to say video source, and then I'm going to get the attribute, so video BTN, which remember has that attribute of data BS SRC. So I'm going to use get attribute, and we want to get the data-bs-src. Okay, so that's the first step. And just to show you right here, this is what we're getting, this attribute which has the video URL in it. So now after, let's see, we're going to go after that if statement, and then I'm going to check for the modal. So let's say if video modal is not equal to null, then we want to take that video modal, we want to add an event listener, and there's a custom event called shown.bs.modal, and when that fires off, then we're going to have a function run. And then we want to take the video and we want to set the attribute. Okay, and the attribute we want to set is going to be source. And then the value of source is going to be video src plus, and then we're going to concatenate, which just means add on to it some parameters. So we want to do question mark autoplay, and I want to set that to 1 because I do want it to autoplay. And then a semicolon, and then we're going to do modest branding, which kind of just changes up the way it looks. We're going to set that to 1, and then another semicolon, and we're going to set show info, set that to 0. All right, so it just takes away like the description and all that. And then yeah, that should be good for that part. Now underneath that if statement, Actually, I'm sorry, no, not underneath. Within that if statement, after this event listener, we want to then take the video modal and we're going to add another event listener. And we're going to listen for an event called hide.bs.modal. Okay, and then when that happens, we're going to run a function, and then we're going to say video.setAttribute, and we're going to set source to video src. All right, so yeah, I think that should do it. So let's save it. Let's come over here. Let's press play. All right, so it didn't autoplay, but let's see if we play and then close it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so you can see how it stopped. Unlike before, when we just put the URL directly in the iframe source, it just kept playing. Because now we're listening for when we open it or when it's shown and when it hides. And we're setting that source attribute dynamically. Okay, so that did autoplay. So maybe you just have to play it first the first time, and then from there it autoplays. Yeah, so it seems to be working now. All right, so that's it for the video section. Now in the next video, what we're going to do is the pricing. So these pricing boxes, we're also going to add these projects which also have modals. So now we're going to do the pricing area and the projects with the modals. So the pricing grid, we actually did a pricing grid project back before we started the website, so it's pretty similar. So we're going to go down to the bottom here and let's say pricing, and we'll have a section. Let's give this an ID because it's in the navigation. So pricing, and then a class of pricing and a class of MY6. We'll have our container. Inside that, we're going to have the heading, which again is going to be like this, like this. So we have a certain style of heading for parts of this website. And they're in their own row. So we'll do a row, and then actually let's add some margin bottom to that as well. And then we're going to do a call MD6, but we want to offset it. So let's say offset dash MD3, and we want it displayed as flex, and then flex column, and then align items to the center, and then text center. Okay, then we have our H5, which is going to have the span in it. So the badge. Well, it is also a span. So span badge, and then BG primary. And then let's do rounded 0 and text uppercase. And for this one, we're going to say pricing. Then underneath that, we'll have the larger heading, which is going to be an H2 with a class of FW-bold. And this one is going to say flexible pricing options. So that'll be our header. Let's check it out. Good. So underneath that row that we just created with the header, or heading, whatever you want to call it, we're going to create another row, and we're just going to justify the content center. And we'll put a comment here. I'll just say pricing column 1. So we're going to have 3 pricing columns. So the first one, let's say call MD3. Now I'm using call MD3 even though there's only 3 columns, because I want it to be more narrow. So if we look at, you can see how this is more narrow than the rest of the content. So we're only doing 3, but we're going to center it. So in the first one here, and this is just one of the many ways you can do it. We've done this other ways in the past. So we'll have a card. So each pricing card will obviously be in a card. We're going to use BG secondary, which is that dark gray, and then text center. And let's do rounded 0. And then in the card body, we're going to have the price, which I'm actually going to use the, what was it, XL text, the custom class that we created. And then let's also do font weight dash bold. And this will be the price, so I'll do $99 like that. Then we're going to have an H4, and that's going to be the card title. And I'm also going to make the text primary and text uppercase. And let's do the font weight bold and the margin bottom 5. And that H4 is going to be the package name, which I'll say standard for this one. Then under the H4, we'll have a paragraph, and that'll just be some simple text about the package. And then underneath that, we'll have a UL that's going to be unstyled, so list unstyled. And I'm going to make the line height larger, so LH-LG, and then MT5. Okay, and in this list item, we're going to have, let's see, how do I want to do this? Actually, let's put the class on this. I was going to put a div in here, but there's really no reason to. So let's put a class here of text uppercase, and we'll do FS, so font size 5. And let's do font weight bold. And then in here we'll say subscribers list. Okay, and then I'm going to copy that LI down. And this one is going to be user admin control. Now, under the UL, we're going to have a link with BTN primary. We're going to do text white. And I want to move this down quite a bit, so we'll do MT6. And let's also do font weight bold. All right, and then this is going to go to # contact. And we'll say inquire. Okay, so there's our first box. Now the rest are pretty similar, so let's copy this column, which ends right here. So we'll grab that and then paste that in. This will be column 2. And we're going to change, let's see, the price is going to be $199. The title of the package is going to be advanced. And then the text is going to be a little bit different. And let's see, for these, the features or whatever, we're going to do limited storage space. And we're going to do free cloud storage. And then this is going to be the same. So if I save that, there we go, we get the next one. So now let's go under that column, which ends here. Oops, I need to copy this. Okay, and then we'll paste that in. This is going to be price column 3, and this one is going to be, what, $299. This is going to be complete. I'll change the text here. And then, actually, let's be consistent with the periods. We won't have them for these. All right, and then, let's see, for the features here, we're going to have deployment protocol. And then, what's the other one? Premium support pack. Okay, so there we go. We have our pricing grid. And on smaller screens, they're going to be stacked on top of each other. You can put some space in between them, but I don't think it's bad to just leave it like that. So now we're going to do the project section, but we're going to do the project modals in the next video. So let's come down here to the bottom, and we'll say projects. And this will be a section with the ID of projects and class projects and MY6. And then we'll have our container And in our container, we're going to have another heading. So let's do the row, and then we'll do our column MD. What are we doing? Call MD6 with the offset dash MD dash 3. And then we want to display a flex column. Okay, and then we want to align items to the center and also text center. And then have our H5. That's going to be the badge. So span with the class of badge and class of BG primary. We're going to say rounded 0 and then text dash uppercase. Okay, and that's just going to say projects. Then we have our large heading underneath, the H2, with a class of FW bold. And we'll say projects we are proud of. And then a paragraph with some text that I'll just throw in. Okay, so if we take a look, there we go. Now the projects are going to be in, obviously they're going to be in a row as well, so let's go under this row. And I'll say projects row 1. You don't have to put these comments in. I just think it makes things more readable and you can find things quicker. So let's put a class of row, and we're going to use call MD4 because we're going to have 3 per row. And then let's do margin bottom 4. And we'll put these in a card with the class of BG secondary. Secondary. And then what else do we want here? Just that. And then we're going to have an A tag that's going to open the modal. Like I said, we're not doing the modal right now, but we'll at least put the A tag with it. So this is going to take data-bs-toggle, and that's going to be set to modal. And then we also need the target, so data-bs-target, and we're going to set that to, this one is going to be ID of modal 1, because we're going to have more than one modal. There's going to be one for every project. And then inside that A tag is going to be the image, and this image will have a class of card-img-top, and it's going to be images / and then project 1. Okay, and then underneath that image will be the card body, and in the card body we'll have a paragraph, and I'm just going to paste in. So it's supposed to be like a company, so Orkla Foods and strong tags, and then just some dummy text. All right, so let's just save that, see what we get. All right, cool. So let's see what else we're going to do here. Let's copy this column, and directly under it we're going to do, this is going to be project 2. It's going to go to modal 2. And then I'm going to change the text. You really don't have to change the text if you don't want. I mean, if you're just doing this to learn and you're not trying to make this look good or anything, you can leave whatever text. It can be all the same. All right, so that's the second. Then we're going to grab this column and put the next one in. This is going to be project 3 and modal 3. And then I'll just grab the text for this, all suites. Okay, then we're going to have the next row. So this row ends, let's see, this one ends right here, and I'm just going to copy the whole thing and then go directly under it, paste that in, and then this is going to be projects row 2. And we'll change this to project, what is this, 4 and modal 4. And then I'm going to grab the text for this. Okay, then we have project 5, modal 5. Grab that text. And then we have modal 6, project 6, and I'll grab that text. And we should be good. So if we take a look, so we probably should put some spacing underneath the first row, the heading. So let's go up here and let's see, row. Let's try margin bottom 5. Yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, and they should stack on top of each other. Yep. Cool. So yeah, in the next video, we're going to create the modals because we're going to have a separate one for each project. Okay, so now we're going to add the modals for these projects here. So each one has an A tag. If we look right here, it has an A tag and it has a target to modal 1, 2, all the way up to 6 because we have 6 projects. So what we'll do is go under the last section and I'm going to just put in here projects or project modals. And then we'll have a div with the class of project dash modals. And let's start with modal 1. Okay, so this, make sure you have the IDs correct. So this one is going to be modal 1. And then we're going to have a class of modal and a class of fade. And then inside that we'll have the modal dash dialog. And I'm also going to do modal dash LG, although I think we'll have to add some custom CSS to make it even bigger. And then MT7, so we're going to move it down quite a bit. And then in the dialog is where we want the content, so let's say modal dash content, and we're also going to do BG dash secondary for the background, and then padding 5. And then in the content we'll have a row, and then we're going to have 2 columns, so call MD6. First one, this is going to be an image. It's going to have a class of IMG fluid just to fit in the container. And then the image is going to be project 1. So it's the same project as on the regular page. Okay, and then that'll be the end of the column because that's all we want there is the image. Then we'll have the next column, so right here, call MD6. And then we'll have an H3 with the company name, which is Orkla Foods. And then I just have a couple paragraphs of just nonsense. And then under that second paragraph, we'll have an A tag with BTN, BTN-primary, and let's do text-white. And let's see, this is just going to go to nothing. If you had an inner page, you could have it go there. And then the text here will just say details. And then underneath that, we're going to have a close button. So this will be an actual button with BTN, and let's do BTN-light. And we'll say close. And the way we can get this to close the modal is with data-bs-dismiss and set that to modal. All right, so now if I click on 1 here, it opens up our modal. So I think that it looks pretty good, but I think if we made it a little bit wider, it would be better. So let's see, we have our video modal. We could copy this, except we want to do, instead of video modal, this is going to be for the project dash modals. And then we'll do the same width, but margin top, I'm going to say 130. So let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks much better. And the close button should close it. All right, so that's really it. Now we just need to create the rest of them. So we can copy modal 1, which ends right here. Right, and then we'll go under that. Let's put in modal 2. And the project is going to be project 2. And this is going to be Monday stores. And we can keep the text, that doesn't really matter. Buttons can be the same. Actually, no, this isn't Monday Stores. This is First Bank. Not that it really matters. Say First Bank. Okay, so we'll go under modal 2. Paste that in. This is going to be modal 3, which is all suites. Let's make sure we change the image here to 3 and then change this to all suites. And then under, this is very important. We need to make sure the ID is modal 3. Make sure this ID is modal 2 because you want to make sure the target is correct. So let's see, under that, paste that in. That's going to be 4. We want to make sure we change the ID and the project. And then that's going to be Fast Courier. Fast Courier. And then let's go underneath that one. And that's going to be modal, what is it? What are we on? 5? 5, 5, and 5. And Lyra Market. Okay, and then we have our last one. And we're going to do 6, 6, and Project 6. And that's going to be Monday Stores. All right, so now you can just kind of test them. First Bank, all suites, Fast Courier, Lyra Market, and Monday Stores. All right, cool. So now we have our modals, and we're almost done with this project. So we just have the subscribe form, the footer, and then we're going to do one inner page for the privacy policy. All right, so we're going to do our newsletter and footer. So I'm going to go to the bottom of the page here, and we'll say newsletter, and let's do a section with a, we're actually going to do an ID of newsletter. Can't type. Newsletter and a class of newsletter. And then let's also do a class of my-6. And then we're going to have a container and a row. Oops. Container and a row with a margin bottom 4. And then we're going to have that heading, which is going to take up 6 slices, and then we're going to offset it. So let's do call dash MD6 and then offset, and we're going to offset MD3, and then we're also going to display as a flex, and then flex dash column, and then let's align items to the center, and let's align the text to the center. Then we have our actually we're not going to do an H5 here, so if we look at it, we're just going to have this right here, which is an H2. So let's say H2, and we'll do font weight dash bold, and we're going to say subscribe and follow. Okay, and then under that H2, I'll do a paragraph, and let me just grab the text for that. Okay, and then under, let's see, that's going to be it for that row. Let's save it and take a look. Okay, so under that row there, which ends right here, we're going to create another row. And then I also want this to be narrow, so again, we're going to do call MD6 and offset dash MD dash 3. And again, we're going to display flex, make it a flex column, and align items to the center, and also align the text to the center. And what we're going to put in here is an input group. So we'll have a class of input dash group, and let's also do margin bottom 3. And inside that we'll have an input. Let's give it a class of form control. Type will be text, or we can make it email actually. And then we're also going to add to this a placeholder, and we'll say enter email address. Okay, so there's our input. Now I also want to add the button to this group, so let's go right under the input, and we'll say button, give it a class of btn, btn-primary, and let's do text-white, and let's take away the rounded corners, and I'm also just going to add a type of button. All right, and then the text for that will be submit. So that should give us the button group. Okay, so that looks good, and that should do it. Now for the footer, footer is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be very similar to the one we did in the last video in the Yavin website. So let's go ahead and add that. I'm going to give it a class of footer, and we're going to use BG secondary, which is the dark gray, and then PY6. And then inside that we'll have a container with a row. And let's do call dash MD dash 4 because it's going to be 3 columns. And I'm also going to do MY3 on that. And then we'll do an H6 and we'll say about Vera. And then we'll do a paragraph underneath, and I'll just throw that text in there. So the next column, which ends after this div, we'll say call dash MD dash 4, and we'll also add MY3 on that. So this is going to be links. So in an H6, we'll say links, and it's going to be an unstyled list. So list unstyled, and let's say li. And important colon, and then we'll just have, I'm actually just going to paste it. I'll paste all these list items in. Okay, so we just have important, useful, and menu. And then I might as well just paste in the last column, which is just going to be some social icons. So let's see, underneath this call MD4, we'll paste that in. So it just has the icons, and then just we love to hear from you with a mail link. So it should look like this. All right, so in the next video, we're going to add a privacy policy page. So this link right here goes to privacy HTML. So you could use that as a template for things like, of course, privacy policies or terms and conditions, things like that, frequently asked questions, and so on. All right, so now we're going to do the privacy policy page, which is a pretty boring page, but it's a common setup for like terms of service, privacy policies, license agreements, stuff like that. So this is what it looks like. We basically just have 1, then any sub items like 1.1, 1.2, 2, 2.1. I threw some unordered lists in here with some check icons. So nothing difficult whatsoever, and then just a simple header. Now, in the footer, there's a couple things that we need to change. I believe I just pasted this in the video. So the pages that don't go anywhere, like terms and conditions, that's fine. Just leave the number sign. But like expertise, so we want to do index.html and then the expertise. All right, because I'm going to be using this footer on other pages. So right now on the home page, we can just leave number sign expertise. That's fine. But if it's an inner page, then we're going to want to put this before it. And I also misspelled pricing. So let's change that and put this for the newsletter. And for home, that's just going to be index.html. And then for details, remove the slash, and it's going to be index.html details. Same thing with solutions and projects. All right, so those should work. So if I do like expertise, that brings us up. All right, so now we can create our privacy page. So let's create a new file called privacy.html. And then I'm going to copy. Let's start at the very top. So we're going to grab from the very top to the bottom of the navigation, so right here, and paste that in. Then we're going to go to the very bottom of the index page and go up to where the footer starts, which is right here, and then we'll go ahead and paste that in. All right, so if I save that, and then if we click on privacy HTML, it should, our privacy policy, it takes us to that page. And this is basically a template for when you want to add an inner page. So we're going to have a very simple header. So let's add that. So you want to go before the footer, but after the nav. Let's say header, and I'm going to give it a class of BG secondary, and also padding -5. Oops. P-5, and in the header we'll have our container, and then a row, and we're going to just do a full call 12, and then an H1 with a class of font weight bold, and we'll say privacy policy. Okay, now underneath the header is where the main content will go. So let's say page content, and for this we're going to have a section. I'm going to have MY5, so margin on the top and bottom. Then we want a container, then we want a row, and then I'm going to do a 10 column on large screens and up, so call LG10, but I want to offset it on large screens by 1 because I just want it to be a little more narrow than the container. And then we'll have an H2, and I'm just going to put just dummy content in here. We'll say lorem 5, and then under the H2 we'll have a paragraph with margin bottom 5 to push the content down a little bit under it. And then I'll do lorem 20, and let's actually make that H2. I want to put the number 1 there. And then we might have a sub item, which we'll put in H4. So let's say 1.1, say lorem 3. And then we'll have paragraph with MB5. And we'll do lorem 30. Then we might have the next one, which is going to be in an H2. So that'll be 2. And then paragraph, so MB-5. So what are we at? We have 1.1, then we have 2, so let's do 2.1. Since the sub item, we'll do it in H4, so 2.1. And then paragraph MB5, lorem 30, and then let's do an unordered list with some checkpoints. So the UL, we'll do a UL with a class of list-unstyled. And let's also do margin bottom 4, and let's make the line height large, so LHLG. And then we'll have our list item, which I'm going to make a flex box, so deflex, and I want to align the check mark icon and the text vertically, so we're going to do align-items-center. Okay, and inside that we'll have our I tag with FAS, and then FA check, and text primary, and let's do a little margin on the x-axis. Okay, so that's our icon. Then we'll have a paragraph with, I don't know, we'll say lorem 15, see what that looks like. Okay, so there we have our check mark. I'm going to copy this LI, just copy it down twice. And there we go. And you can keep going with, 3, 4, whatever. It's going to get very repetitive, so I'm not going to add any more. But yeah, so that's just a standard format for a privacy policy, terms of service, things like that. Now, these links don't work on inner pages. It's the same reason the footer links didn't, so let's fix those real quick. So the brand is going to go to index.html. And then let's see, for home, that'll be index.html. And then for the rest of them, they're going to be index.html, but we also want to add the area that we want them to go to. So pricing, projects. All right, so now if I were to click expertise here, it'll go to index.html and bring me down to the expertise area. All right, So yeah, I mean that's it, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed this project. This is the last project of the course. I may add something else to it, but I'm not sure. I've been really, really busy lately. So I really hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.